Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Again, the takeaway from all of this is Jason Collins proves that people are not born that way. Concordance rate among identical twins. He's got an identical twin, played in the NBA almost as long as he did. And by the way, got a tweet with a very insightful suggestion. Jason Collins has now put himself in a position where if he does not get picked up by an NBA team next year, he'll be able to blame it on homophobia. That'll be the reason. It's not because he's averaging 1 points a game, 1.6 rebounds a game. He's 34. He's at the twilight of his career. That couldn't be the reason that he's not producing anymore. He's not that good anymore. The reason is going to be homophobia. You watch and see, because I don't think there's any way he's going to get picked up. You know, and his brother said he was astounded when he came out. So his brother had absolutely no clue of his brother's sexual preference. Now, Jason Collins says in the column, my parents instilled Christian values in me. They taught Sunday school. I take the teachings of Jesus seriously, particularly the ones that touch on tolerance and understanding, apparently skipping the teachings of Jesus about human sexuality. And he says a humorous thing later, I frankly don't care about stats. Well, that's good because his stats aren't anything to write home about. There's a historical error in this piece. He wore number 98 in gesture of solidarity with Matthew Shepard, because Matthew Shepard was that University of Wyoming student who was beaten and strapped to a fence in a wintry road and died of exposure back in 1998. Now, Matthew Shepard was homosexual. He became the martyr for the homosexual movement, even though it turns out that his death and his beating had nothing to do with his homosexuality. He wasn't beaten because he was gay. He was beaten because he was welching on a drug deal. And there's an ABC 2020 or one of those news shows interviewed the guys that are in prison for beating him to death, and they said, look, it had nothing to do with him being homosexual. We didn't beat him up for that. We beat him up because he wasn't paying us for the drugs that we were trying to sell him. So we will see. And it's interesting that Jason Collins says this, if I'm up against an intolerant player, I'll set a pretty hard pick on him. So he says, look, I'm gonna set hate screens. If I get back in the NBA, I'm going to set hate screens or hate picks. When I get in front of a guy that I think's intolerant, man, I'm going to make him feel the pain. I'm going to do what Obama's doing on this sequester deal. I'm going to make him pay. So he's admitting that he's going to inflict violence in the name of anti-Christian bigotry, anti-normalcy bigotry. He's going to set a hard screen, make people feel the pain. That's a hate screen. All right, so that is the Jason Collins deal. Well, let's go to the phones and see what all of you think about all of this going on. By the way, gay activists are trying to get Greg Laurie bounced from the National Day of Prayer for being anti-gay. I mean, Greg Laurie, I'm sure he's talked about homosexuality. He's a well-known pastor of Southern California, has these harvest events. We've aired them on this network. He's a great guy, evangelical pastor, teaches the word, preaches the word. I've actually never heard him say anything about homosexuality at all. I mean, I'm not saying he hasn't. I'm sure he has. But it's not like that is a signature issue with him. So what the gay activists are doing, homosexual activists, if you have ever in your life said anything remotely supportive of natural marriage, you're on their hate list, and they're trying to get him banned. Now, they got Franklin Graham bounced from the Pentagon, remember a couple of years ago, for telling the truth about Islam. Now they're trying to get Greg Laurie bounced from the National Day of Prayer for being a homophobic, bigoted hater. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Robert, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Or no, rather, I'm sorry, Jack, San Angelo, Texas. Jack, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, you bet. What's up?
Hey, I was just going to make a comment. Whenever you were talking about Jason Collins a little while ago, I thought something kind of strange came to my mind about it, is that, you know, in light of what he's done and whatnot and how everybody was celebrating Obama, the White House was celebrating about it, I kind of drew a parallel to the fact that it seems that in the pagan and secular world, the equivalent of being born again is coming out, being born again into Christian, into Christ. It seems that the gay lifestyle, their form of being born again is coming out of the closet.
Yeah, it's sort of a perverse mirror image.
Yeah, and I was just I just wanted to comment on that, and then
All right.
one last thing, if you don't mind. I was going to say too. Again, I was just again with the idea that people are born gay. Again, to me, it seems foolish that homosexual people pick their partners, and that same discretion that heterosexuals use to pick their partners is the same discretion they use to not be sexually active. And so when someone is involved in a homosexual lifestyle and tries to say, I have no control over it, it's just something that happens to me, I can't fix it, I can't control it, they're actually lying because they can pick the partner that they're going to have intercourse with.
Mm-hmm.
It shows the discretion to control their sexual urges.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, listen, I appreciate that, Jack. Thank you for that. So anytime, and Jack's point is anytime a homosexual exercises any sort of selectivity at all when it comes to intimate matters, he is proving that it's a matter of choice. Nobody's compelled to follow those impulses. Now, it's interesting, I was struck by the phrase in Philippians 3:19, they glory in their shame. They glory in their shame. They celebrate, they honor, they take pride in things that ought to be matters of shame, humiliation, and embarrassment. And when you have the President of the United States, this is what is significant about this, the President of the United States out there honoring, celebrating sexual perversity. This homosexuality is a perversion of God's design for human sexuality. It deviates from God's plan for human sexuality. It is a form of sexual perversion. It is a form of sexual deviancy because it deviates, it twists, it distorts, it perverts the plan of God for human sexuality. So any kind of sexual activity, I want to be clear here, any kind of sexual activity outside of marriage is a form of sexual deviancy because it deviates from the path of God. That's immorality, that sexual immorality, that is adultery. Any sort of sexual intimacy outside of marriage deviates from God's plan. But now you have the President of the United States openly celebrating sexual deviancy. So calling evil good and calling good evil. It's it's like almost a milestone moment to have the president do this at a press conference to so openly, blatantly celebrate sexual behavior that we know is a perversion and a form of deviance in God's eyes. Let's go to Robert, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Robert, welcome. Talk to me.
Hey, Brian, I'd like to first tell you I enjoy yours and your Buddy Crane show very much.
Thank you very much.
Hey, 2 points real quick. I think our media and our politicians need to really look at the word brave, for one thing. And two, I like to say that I think that politicians and celebrities, all those people support this kind of behavior. Abortion and other things just hang on to their jobs. It's how to define selling your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, Robert, I appreciate the call. Thank you. That's an insightful observation. Let's go to Anthony, Richmond, Virginia. Anthony, welcome. Talk to me.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. I totally agree with Chris Broussard on what he was saying. This guy is sold out for Christ. And what he's saying is that he didn't specifically jump on a homosexual. He mentioned everything that dealt with outside of marriage that God calls evil.
Yes.
And that's what the left is really jumping on. And I am an African American. I'd rather say I'm a black man. Our president is setting a precedent in this country that, and excuse my French, he's saying the hell with what God says. I'm going to do it my way. That's what he's saying. It's an open air to saying whatever you think is good, you just do it. Forget about what God says. And that's basically what he's telling. Jason Collins has a choice. He was engaged to a young lady.
Yes, he was.
And to say that he could have fought those urges. The thing is that the teaching that he got, I'm not saying that he wasn't grounded, but he just didn't put the word to use. The word of God works when you work it.
Mm-hmm.
And it tells us to cast down every vain imagination that tries to exalt itself against God. And we as men, we all could have fell prey to that thing, but we know God has set a standard for us to live by. That's all I have to say. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. I appreciate that. You know, and Chris Broussard, he's black, the guy that's getting in all this trouble for upholding a biblical view of sexuality. He's black, which is an indication that for liberals, ideology trumps everything. It trumps race. It trumps everything. So it doesn't matter what your race is. If you're going to go against liberal orthodoxy, you're going to be classified as a heretic. You are going to be disfellowshipped. You are going to be excommunicated for your heresy. Let's go to Delores in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Delores, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to say that I think we need to do something to help Chris Broussard out. We need to get some kind of petition and stuff, and we need to fight the devil back on their own track. And we need, as Christian believers in the Bible, King James Version Bible, Holy Bible of Jesus Christ, we need to go to Chris Broussard rescue. That's all I want to say. We need to help him out.
Okay. All right, Delores. You know, and one of the ways, there is a hashtag for those of you that are on Twitter. I posted a tweet with this hashtag. The title of the hashtag is I Stand With Chris. I Stand With Chris. So if you are on Twitter, you want to show your support for Chris Broussard, just send a supportive tweet and put that hashtag. If you're on Twitter, you'll have some idea what I'm talking about. Just use that hashtag, I Stand With Chris, and your tweet will be added to the list of all those who are supporting Chris Broussard. And Chris Broussard's the guy that's shown all the courage in this situation in my mind. I don't see Jason Collins showing any bravery or courage whatsoever. He's just being shrewd. Knew exactly when to wave the rainbow flag for the maximum possible personal benefit. Chris Broussard's the guy that's shown all the bravery and courage because he is standing in the gap to rebuild the wall. Focal Point AFR Talk back after the news.